Welcome back. Minister of State for Trade and Industry Alvin Tan says the free trade agreement between Singapore and the Pacific Alliance offers businesses and investors a stable environment to grow. The FTA entered into force on Monday to reduce tariffs and lower operating costs for businesses and builds on bilateral trade, which reached $12.5 billion last year. Nadira Zaidi with this report.
Making canchita, or Peruvian popcorn, using authentic ingredients from Peru. This restaurant currently imports 15% of its ingredients from the South American nation. With the recent Singapore-Pacific Alliance Free Trade Agreement, or PAS FTA, the owner is hopeful that costs will drop, paving the way to increase imports to 25%.
It will also encourage people back home to try to work towards to a more trading economy. Not everything that is produced in a country is with the purpose to export it. But again, now with the changes in all the tariffs worldwide and in the economies, I think this is an important step that Singapore is taking because the more Peru sees Southeast Asia as a market, the more and more the things can be produced to fit certain needs.
Peru is one of 4 Latin American countries in the deal, along with Chile, Colombia, and Mexico. So far, only the pacts with Peru and Chile are in force. The FTA covers sectors like agri-trade, infrastructure, and digital innovation and technology and logistics. And the timing, analysts say, is significant.
We can say it's part of a deliberate hedging strategy where countries are trying to diverse their access and trade across regions and embed and strengthen the economic linkages with markets other than US and China. And for Singapore, both those countries are the current major trading partners. So it also aligns with the broader shift among Singapore exporters to diversify their trade in electronics, agri-good, digital services, away from traditional production corridors.
With more than 230 million combined population, the Pacific Alliance member states represent the 9th largest economy in the world and 40% of the total GDP of the Latin America and Caribbean region. As of today, there are about 100 Singapore firms in the Pacific Alliance markets. At the event to celebrate the agreement, Minister of State for Trade and Industry, Alvin Tan, says the FTA plays an important role in keeping Singapore's trade links open and connected.
PASTA is a platform, and it's not just signing, but it's a platform for our businesses to access new markets and opportunities. Many of the businesses are represented here tonight. It also fosters an environment of predictability and certainty and fairness, which is crucial for our investors and our businesses to make decisions, to operate in these markets with confidence, and most importantly, thrive.
The PAS FTA will enter into force for Colombia and Mexico after the completion of their respective ratification process.
Well, sounds intriguing, so let's get more from Alex Capri. He is Senior Lecturer at the NUS School of Business. He is also author of Techno-Nationalism, How It's Reshaping Trade, Geopolitics and Society. First of all, I know you're in Zurich, but let me put this to you, or tell us your perspective for how important the Latin American market really is to Singapore, and how this FTA might perhaps drive trade relations with them.
Well, Singapore is playing the mid to the long game, and it's all about adjusting to the trade environment that we're in today, which, of course, involves tariff uncertainty, the United States taking that position, levying tariffs. And so this is really about diversifying trading relationships, making more friends, locking in rule frameworks around the manner of trade and how it's conducted. So again, this is about spreading out and making as many connections around the world, as Singapore is such a connected economy as it is. So this is really the logical next step.
Yeah, so, as you said, it's about diversification. So which sectors do you think in Singapore have expressed interest and stand to gain the most from this FTA? And what exactly will they get?
Well, interestingly, as the global south continues to develop and evolve around digital technologies, right, the platform economy, I think Singapore has a lot to offer, right, as Singapore moves its economy more and more towards AI, obviously logistics, clean tech, things of that nature. So I think as those Latin American economies evolve, again, this is a long term sort of perspective. I think Singaporean interests will be rewarded.
Okay, now it's been a while in the making. Back in July 2022, then Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong talked about the agreement as providing hope and opportunity as the world grapples with, back then it was COVID-19. So do you see that same kind of role in light of the ongoing US tariffs for the agreement?
It is. It's the same idea. It's, again, about not having to depend on one economy or another. It's about reducing single source type supply chains. Of course, the pandemic really revealed that. So it's about broadening your trade networks. And, it's also, there's a cultural element, right? It's about bringing in Latin American food. It's about the exchanges that take place between Singapore and that part of the world.
Yeah, so I guess the question mark is whether the PSFTA is enough to offset those uncertainties from the US trade wars and the geopolitical shocks. What would your advice be to Singapore sectors that are looking into this?
It's really just about trying to keep as many options open as possible, looking for opportunities, looking for investment potential, looking for partnerships. I think when ratification does take place, if and when, for Mexico, that's going to be a very interesting market to watch, right? Because Mexico is absorbing a lot of supply chains that are restructuring and decoupling from China in particular. I think that's sort of an in, if you will, for Singaporean investors and partnerships there.
Long term, do you see maybe other countries in the region having a look at this alliance and joining or even cooperating with the Pacific Alliance? And that would be a good thing for Singapore.
Well, why not, right? Again, in the global environment that we're in now, I think it behooves any country, particularly a so-called middle-tier country, to forge as many relationships as it can, and again, avoid becoming too reliant on any single source. So I think we'll see more countries jump on the bandwagon. A lot of these things are very symbolic, as well as being substantive. It's about having a forum to discuss things. It's about having the right to a particular rules framework that's defined in the agreement that gives a kind of consistency to all the parties. So I think there's really no harm done in having a proliferation of these types of agreements. Now, whether or not you can actually enforce the standards that get embedded in the agreement is another discussion, right? But nonetheless, I think these agreements are sort of a net positive for everyone.
All right, the benefits outweigh the risks, certainly. Thank you so much, Alex Capri, author, senior lecturer at the NUS School of Business.